Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. This is Blonde. In a few minutes, we'll get started. Okay, and I'm looking at the number of attendees here, so I think that we can start. So again, good afternoon, everyone. This is Blonde Ladokian, Cdbg Program Manager here. Welcome to the Winter Holiday Update. I hope that you can benefit from this GA update. We have a lot of nice updates to share with you today. So before we actually get into the GA update, of course, we have some housekeeping. This GA update is provided with Teams Live. While using Teams Live, you will not be able to use your audio or video. To ask a question, please use the chat function. If you're having any issues connecting, please contact Matt Wakefield. And there is Matt Wakefield's email. Of course, to ask a question, if you're an attendee and want to ask a question, just use the QA on the right side. Type your question in the compose box and then select send. If you want to ask your question anonymously, select anonymously. And of course, to receive credit for the GIA update, so due to technical difficulties, we're unable to mark attendance with Teams. So if you need this credit for the GIA update, please fill out the form. I will make this an announcement later on into the GA update. If you don't need credit for this particular GA update and you're just here listening, you do not have to fill this out. So for the agenda, over the course of this update, we'll update you on the following. We're going to have an icebreaker with a holiday trivia. We're going to have updates about Main Street, HELP, HRGP awards, preserving. We have a few CDBG updates, reminder about the holidays coming up and deadlines, timely expenditures with Christmas and Adam, an introduction to the income surveys module in GMS, tutorial on the claims process, the ER process, resources, federal changes, general reminders with Tim, tutorial on uploading files with Catherine Johanches and John, review of the documentation and process for submission of pre-release of funds and contractor cards with John, the overview and review for submission of construction release labor checks supporting documentation going forward. And then the status of COVID monitoring achievements on-site monitoring will begin soon, closeout process updated, and then updated duties and responsibilities list with Adam. So without further ado, we have Okra Trivia. And this is the holiday related version of that. You guys all seemed to enjoy it last time, so we thought we'd bring it right back. So for the rules of holiday trivia, I'll ask a question related to Okra, the state of Indiana, In the Q&A chat, provide an answer to the question as quickly as you can. While we won't be keeping score, if you answered all the answers correctly, we'll give you some bragging rights and I'll announce your name. So does anyone have any questions so far before we start trivia? And I'm not seeing any in the Q&A. So we'll go ahead and get started. So what is the name of the event each November that for 30 years has kicked off the Christmas shopping season in Du Bois County? We got the Huntingburg Shuffle, Prisma Kindle Market, Winterfields, or D, the Huntingburg Christmas Stroll. And we'll give you a minute or so to answer that in the Q&A. Okay, and I'm seeing a few answers go in, so I will go ahead and give you the answer. So if you answered the Huntingburg Christmas Stroll, you were correct. This was actually sent in by the executive director, Denny Spinner. So thank you. So now our next question. What city in Indiana has igloos for you to rent during the holiday season? We have Carmel, Westfield, South Bend, or Muncie. We'll give you a minute or so to answer that question. Okay, and I see a couple of you sending answers in. So I'll go ahead and give you the answer to that one. And the answer to that is Westfield. So if you answered Westfield, go ahead and add that to your score. Okay, and then now we have the last question. So what year did Indiana's most famous blizzard occur? I'll give you a minute or so. Okay. And if you answered 1978, you would be correct. The blizzard of 1978. So now let's move forward to the G update. And if you answered correctly, please let us know in the discussion chat and we'll move forward with the G update. So now we're going to segue into the strategic initiatives at the Indiana Office of Community and Rural Affairs with Andrea Kern. So Andrea, if you'd like to request access to Teams Live, we'll go ahead and get started.
Hi, everyone. Let's see how. I'm trying to figure out how to get control of this.
Okay.
Well, Blondie, I could have you just flip through for me.
Yes, I absolutely can.
Okay, all right, next slide, please. Okay, so just going to give a brief Indiana Main Street update. We've got some dates that grant administrators might want to know about. Our annual letter of agreement, we just started doing those in 2020, but this year's will expire at December 31st. So we'll be sending those out in the next couple weeks to have those signed. They basically talk about our expectations with each of our Main Street communities. Their logo usage is regulated through that agreement. And so yeah, there's no other changes, it's just the date. So we'll be having those sent out for signature before the end of the year. Our annual reporting for our Main Street organizations is also going out in the next few weeks, and they will have until March 4th to get those into us. And it's not going to be any different than it was last year. So hopefully our Main Streets have been keeping track of that data so that we can send that off to National Main Street timely. Next slide. And then lastly, for Main Street, our annual assessments are going to be occurring in the first few months of 2022. So our nationally accredited Main Streets will get an all-day visit from both OCRA and National Main Streets. And we're currently scheduling those. IAMs, anybody who is going to be leveling up in the next 2 years is going to get an assessment this year. So we've been keeping track of that information, and those will also occur in the same time period as the nationally accredited Main Street assessments. And for any of our ODANs, the expectation is that they only get an assessment once every 3 years, and those will be done by the community liaisons. So next slide. Oh, my last Main Street update then is that we will be bringing back our community exchanges in 2022. So those are designed for Main Street communities from all across the state to come together and learn from one another. We have presenters, but it's a great way for them to do some relationship building. And usually we theme those. So we're working on defining the themes for all of the events this year, but you can see where those will be held in 2022 and the dates. I think they all fall on a Friday. So hopefully we do have the expectation that all of our Main Streets attend at least one every year. So try to host those all over the state so that there's one that's easily accessible to each of them. Next slide. We announced our historic renovation grant program recipients just before Thanksgiving. So we were able to award 11 projects for about $713,000. It was a highly competitive round. We had over 50 applications requesting over $3.5 million in funds. So obviously highly competitive and just really difficult to see all of the preservation need out there, and not being able to fund all of those really great projects this year. But We will be looking at the program to make adjustments to it in 2022, just based on scoring. This was the first year that we had a competitive process instead of a first come, first serve process. So I want to make sure that we are continuing to hone that scoring process so that, we're really funding the most critical preservation needs throughout the state with our limited amount of funding. So you can see there the 11 projects that were selected in this round. So if you have any questions about the Historic Renovation Grant Program, your first contact is always our community liaisons moving forward. So next slide. Preserving Main Street, I had given an update to everybody on the last GA update. Not much has changed here. We are working still with Kendallville and Brookville to get their planning process underway, and they have been working with Indiana Landmarks and Indiana Humanities to get their projects underway with each of those organizations. So not much to update there, but wanted to just give a refresher that that program is happening right now and with those two communities. So next slide. And then the other exciting update that we made last week is our Hoosier Enduring Legacy program, our HELP program, was announced last week, and we announced our 3 cohorts that will go through the entire HELP process. The first cohort is our Northeast Indiana cohort. They start in January, and that's the city of Auburn, Kosciuszko County, and Jay County. Our second cohort will start in July of 2022, and that includes the city of Vincennes, Davies County, and Du Bois County, so our Southwest Indiana cohort. And then our last cohort is our East Central cohort of the city of Connersville, Wayne County, and Franklin County. And they'll start in December of 2022 as well. And all of our cohorts will be done developing their strategic investment plans by the end of 2023, giving them lots of time to implement the projects from their plan before their ARPA funds need to be spent by the end of 2026. So big congratulations to those communities, and we will be celebrating with the first cohort at the State House tomorrow. So next slide. Oh, I just included this, which is a refresher on the 4 points for the HELP program. They will be focusing on community wellness, advancing e-connectivity, enhancing quality of place, and strengthening local economies. And we've partnered with Ball State, Purdue, Ivy Tech, and IU to help facilitate kind of the discussion that will be happening around those 4 points to develop that strategic investment plan. So next slide. Then lastly, just another pitch for communities that were not selected for HELP. We still have this American Rescue Plan Act toolkit on our website that gives some advice on how the funds have been, how you can use the funds based on a lot of the research and conversations that we've had with Treasury. So that's a great document that you can access through the link that's on the screen. I will say we did get a Treasury update over the holiday weekend that basically said that anything that communities do while the interim final rule is in place will not need to be paid back as long as it's within the guidelines of the interim final rule. So if something changes by the time it gets to the final rule, that as long as you did it in good faith with the interim guidance that was provided, there won't be a repayment that's required. So the period of public comment has closed, and so we would expect to see final guidance within the next couple of weeks to a couple months. So next slide. And then just some admin updates for our team. We have Alexander Taylor, who started on Monday with our agency, and he is going to be project managing for the HELP program, largely since that's a big lift right now. Also working on our Rosie program, our Hometown Business Preservation Initiative, as well as working with the Main Street team on some economic development programs and efforts. And then we also have Abby Huff starting in a couple Mondays, and she is coming to us from Iowa. She will be our Indiana Main Street Outreach and Organization Program Manager, so doing a lot of the work with our Main Streets to help them with their work plans, their mission and vision statement, board development, all of that very hands-on stuff. So she will be traveling a lot and working very closely with those Main Street organizations to provide that technical assistance that we know they really want and expect from the coordinating program. So if you get a chance, make sure you email Alex and say hello. And then Abby will start on the 13th and we'll be, sending out her contact information as well. So thank you, everyone.
And thank you, Andrea. We can't wait to see what you and your team do on these programs. So now we have a few CDBG updates with Christmas Hudgens, Matt Wakefield, and of course me. So for we'll be having a few holiday tips for you. So first, don't wait till last minute. If you have questions, make sure you answer at least a week in advance. Review the December calendar. CDBG Q4 Planning Awards will be announced 12/7. The 2021 Round 2 applications are due December 17th, and Recovery Housing Pilot Program applications are due December 17th. So please think about these dates. We have a few state holidays that will be coming up soon. So December, we'll be out of the office December 23rd. We'll be out of the office December 24th, and also we'll be out the office December 31st. So please make sure to keep sending your questions now so that we can answer them in a timely manner. And then also be patient. We're a small but great office, so we'll try our best to answer your questions. Some of us may be out of the office. This is just the time of year where some people take vacation off. So just be patient. And then lastly, enjoy your holiday, and we'll continue to serve you all next year. So now I'm going to give this off to Christmas and Adam to talk about timely expenditures discussion.
Thank you very much, Bolanle. So good afternoon, everybody. It's good to hear from you and to virtually engage in the Q&A. We're awfully happy to have you. I did want to have a brief discussion with you today about timely expenditures. One of the things that we've noticed over the last couple months is that our expenditure rate is going down a little bit. There are probably a couple of things that we could reasonably conclude are likely causes for a drop in expenditures. With all of the additional funding out there and being spent, I don't know if there's maybe some capacity issues at play with communities or with grant administrators. Some of it could be related to the type of activities that have been approved for funding. Certainly we know that some activities just tend to move faster. Some take longer to draw on to expend funds. A good example of this would be demolition or clearance activities that typically move a little bit more quickly than a construction project. Some communities may also be seeing a problem getting a hold of the necessary supplies and/or materials for their projects. They may be seeing problems with a rise in costs that might mean rebidding a project or looking at alternative scopes, which slow down the contracting process. So completely understand that there's a lot of factors here. The main thing that we want to do is to better understand what is happening. And to do that, we want to hear from you. We want to remind all of you to make regular draws as you can. And to just encourage you, we are available to offer any technical assistance where appropriate. If you do run into challenges, let us know what those challenges are. If there is some strategic solutioning that we can engage in with you to try and keep things moving, any kind of creative problem solving, but we are here to work alongside you and to provide whatever support that we can. And so this is really an invitation to you. Please send us feedback. If there's something that we've missed or something that may be impacting our ability to get those drawdowns in, let us know what those are and we can talk through those challenges and figure it out. But we do need to make sure that we're making regular draws because that timely expenditure requirement for HUD is incredibly important. And we want to keep those expenditures up as much as we can. So, Adam, do you have anything that you want to add?
The only other thing I think I'm going to add in here is, the main thing really is that communication piece that Christmas mentioned. Reach out to grant services or OCRA if there's a reason why a project is not, finishing out or spending its final funds. And then also, and this is specifically to any COVID phase 3 projects that are still ongoing. Just keep in mind that those are emergency funds, so there are not extensions for those projects. We have not allowed extensions for any COVID-19 projects. So those funds will need to be distributed by the closeout date.
Okay. Oh, real quickly, I apologize. Before we jump into the income survey piece, I did also want to mention to all of you that we are also expanding the Cdbg team here at OCRA. We are currently looking for candidates, interviewing candidates for our newly created Cdbg program and policy analyst position. This person is going to be primarily responsible for conducting research, and data collections, statistical, economic, and policy analysis. We're hoping that this person will help us to identify and develop relationships with additional economic and policy experts, academics, practitioners, like yourselves, who can contribute to our understanding of what those relevant community issues and needs are, or even the regulations impacting Cdbg, so that we can strategically propose new policy initiatives that help us to ensure compliance with all of those federal regulations. We can better coordinate the implementation of any approved policy initiatives through the development of Cdbg manuals in partnership with grant services and the rest of the Cdbg team. We're looking for ways that we can better document and communicate the program MCAT data so that we can build reports, publications, and documents needed for record keeping and public information sharing, as well as providing input for reports and documents of other Cdbg team members. So look for an announcement, hopefully soon. But if you do have any potential candidates that you would like to send our way, we're always open to seeing what wonderful and well-experienced folks are out there that would help to increase our capacity to serve communities. So just to put that on your radar, that we are looking to expand our capacity here at this end so that we can continue to provide you with the highest level of service. And so if you know anybody, send them our way. But hopefully we'll be making an announcement here very soon as to who that person will likely be.
All right, I think that is my cue then. So I am excited to announce that starting next year, 2022, we will be moving our income survey and income survey process into GMS. So I have a few screenshots that I'll be showing on the following slides, but I did want to let you all know that this is something that will be introduced right now to answer any fear. Any income surveys that have already been approved and are in process, we don't need to convert those into GMS. Those will still be accepted and are still valid through the life of the income survey. We'll be moving all future new income surveys into GMS through the process. The reason we want to do this is just so that it's easier for us to keep track of the entire process. Right now, we're going back and forth with emails. It gets confusing. I'm sure you all get frustrated with the amount of emails that come back and forth throughout the entire process. So this will keep it all within the contained GMS system. And then it will also allow you, hopefully, to reduce the amount of duplication that you are doing. Once you have an approved income survey through the process that I'll show you, that income survey is going to live on GMS for the life of that survey. So when you're doing an application, you no longer have to fill out all of those parts. As part of this, you'll be able to just see that the income survey has been completed. You can attach it to that application. So with that said, Blumley, do you want to kind of go through the first slide?
Yes, I sure can.
So it's going to look like, and this is again just sort of some screenshots of it. There'll be sort of 3 sections that you'll be looking at. The first section is going to be sort of the pre-survey, where you're going to put in the information. Again, the big thing that we're talking about here is that none of the things that we're asking for are really changing, and the process that you'll go through is not going to change. What you'll be doing is giving everything on the you'll be uploading everything, all the information and data before the application in order to apply, and it will all be there. So this first section, you're really just putting in the client, you're outlining the geography, and then those things that we're looking for specifically, what is the LMI now, and then what is the justification letter. So you'll upload those documents. If you go to the next page, Blumley. And so it'll look a lot like the grant administration object, or the grant administration page that you're looking at or are typically using. And so all of those will be converted over here. You'll upload those documents, and then you'll submit it for approval. Go ahead, Blumley. And then on these next 2 pages, really what we've done is just converted that form that we've had for that income survey calculator worksheet into GMS. So everything where it's pre-populating data, where it does all the calculations for you, that will still continue, but you're just going to use it in this format. So once you get that done, you'll include all of that, as well as the your income limits. You'll put those in here as well. And then our team will check that after you submit that for approval. And so that essentially certifies or guarantees that you have identified the correct service area, and then you'll go ahead and then survey that service area, and we'll know beforehand, and we won't have to check after if there are any errors or if the correct income limits were used. Next one, Blumley. I think the next one, then I think we've covered this. And then the final step is going to be just inputting all of that information. So those last 2 slides is going to be that survey worksheet that you're used to filling out at the end as well. And this is just going to be, again, all of these columns, once you put in the number of people you surveyed, number of households, the number LMI above and below, this will auto calculate for you all. You'll see that percentage, and then you'll upload and fill out all the methodology and uploads, and then you're done. And so once that has been done for that community, that will live on as that community's record, you can then attach that to any application that they are completing. So in each application that you do in the future, whether it's a planning grant that moves into a construction grant, you can just use this income survey, and you won't have to rewrite, re-put in that methodology, all those uploads, they'll already be there for you. And so, as always, if you have any questions specifically about income surveys, Blumley is going to be your first point of contact. And if you have any questions about the GMS process, please feel free to shoot me an email or give me a phone call. I'm happy to answer it.
Thanks, Matt. So now we're going to segue for grant services updates. Adam?
Good afternoon. Here's a lovely picture of the business office on the screen now. You can see all of our great Halloween costumes. I was a box of Cracker Jacks. It was amazing. Catherine, sadly, was not able to attend the Halloween party, so she's not pictured here. But we could jump over to the next slide and move along. Just a few quick updates from me. I wanted to give a little status update on COVID monitorings. We've had, some individuals ask, when is my COVID grant going to close out? Just so everyone knows, we had a total of 191 COVID projects come through. 102 of those have been officially monitored and are in closeout. We have 36 more that are ready to close out, and we have 52 that are still in progress. So we've made a lot of progress through those monitoring. So if you have one that you're waiting to be completed, please be patient with grant services. We are working through all of those to get those done. The next topic, we are going to be returning to doing on-site monitorings. I know we've been doing our monitorings digitally via GMS, and we just want to get back out in the community and back out and see your guys' shining faces. So we'll be doing basically all of the public facility, stellar, and then half of the water and stormwater projects in person moving forward. So when you do submit a closeout, you will be contacted by whoever is going to be doing the monitoring, and they will let you know whether it's going to be digital or if it's going to be an in-person monitoring. If there is something about the monitoring that is extra difficult, let's say you have like 15 subcontractors or something like that, then that's one you could alert us, and we would try to make it so that we could do an in-person monitoring, but we're not just going to do in-person just because you want to. But those are returning, so be aware of that moving forward in the future. The next little update is we are changing the closeout process. This is now going to be done through GMS. Some people have already been doing their closeout process through GMS, which is awesome. So you're a little bit ahead of the curve. It's a very simple process. It's like you're basically doing a report in GMS. You use the little button in the right hand at the top. It says start closeout, and you'll select that, and then there's a little screen you just sign off on. Once that's completed, it will send an approval to accounting and then to grant services, and then we'll get your monitoring assigned and started. So there's no closeout form 1 needed anymore. You will not have to send that form in to initiate your closeout. All of it will be done through GMS. I will say that during that process, while you're doing that closeout process in GMS, you must enter your final number of beneficiaries before you do that closeout process. If you don't, while you're doing the process, you'll get a little pop-up box that instructs you to do it, and then you'll have to go back and just start the little closeout process all over again. But it's very easy. We will have a guide for that up on the GMS FAQ webpage. That will be going up there shortly. And also, to continue on with that, there will no longer be, like I said, no closeout form 1 to initiate your closeout. There will still be a closeout form, but it's going to be given to us at monitoring. And what it's going to do is it's going to cover all the questions that we would ask the clerk treasurers, things like if they understand what happens when the grant closes, and if there were any complaints and stuff like that. We just want to get that signed off on. So that form will be required at monitoring. And then after the monitoring, when you do your closeout forms 2 and 3, those are now going to be combined into one form. So you won't have to do 2 separate forms for 2 and 3. It'll be just one form. And those are being updated currently and will soon be on the OCRA Handbook and Forms webpage. We are also currently updating the grant services duties and responsibilities list. If you don't know, Emily Brockmeyer is no longer with us. She has moved on to a different position at a different organization. She's very happy to be there, and we were glad to have her, and we miss her dearly. But we are changing some of the responsibilities that we have, so watch for that list to change on the OCRA website. And then finally, Grant Services also has an opening. So we are taking applications for that currently. We're taking them through December 5th. So if you do know anybody that would be interested in being a grants manager with Grant Services, go ahead and give them my information and then send them my way, and I can give them a link to how to apply for that. And with that, I think we'll go on over to Tim with some ER updates.
Alrighty, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tim Parthen. I'm the ER specialist for Grant Services. I just have a couple of quick updates for you. I want to clarify there are no actual process changes, no changes to the federal regulations. We just have a couple of new resources available for you. And we did make a couple revisions to one of our forms because we had changes in contact. So right off the bat, you can see there we have some new ER checklists. Those checklists are complete, and we will be able to provide those upon request. We're still working with the Okra Communications Manager to get those added to the Okra website. They will be located on the Cdbg resources page under the environmental review section. We did revise ER Form 7, so this was what we commonly call the agency contact form. The only changes to this were for the contact information for Department of Natural Resources, DHPA, or SHPO, and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services. Both of those agencies have had some turnover, and they have some new staff in place. And then the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has created a dedicated inbox just for environmental review requests for the state of Indiana. So you'll find that new contact information on the new ER Form 7. We also have an additional guide for you, or checklist. It essentially breaks down all of those document compliance pieces for the different levels of ER. So it goes all the way from exempt and CENST all the way up to environmental assessments. It breaks that out not only by ER type, but also the different section, statute, or regulation that applies to your environmental review, and gives some good guidance on whether or not a certain document would apply, whether or not you need to provide it, and what sort of exceptions on providing certain things exist. We can move to the next slide, Belonley. Thank you. These are just a few general reminders here as we're going through this most recent round of environmental release requests. I'm noticing some common mistakes and small errors, so I wanted to briefly go over these. As a reminder, ER Form 4, this is your statutory worksheet, is exclusively for categorically excluded or CEST projects. We don't use that for environmental assessments, and that's partially because we have a separate form for EAs, but also because they are a lot more complex and detailed. So make sure you're using ER Form 4 only for CEST projects. For EA projects, you'll use ER Form 8, which is the Format 2 Environmental Review Record, or Format 2 ERR. Also, some common mistakes we're seeing on the Rrofc or ER Form 6. I wanted to go over those. Make sure on field 2 that you are listing the grant number. And this is the grant number that you would be assigned by Okra or Grant Services. So if you have a wastewater grant, for example, you would enter WW21100. Under field 8, another common field that is typically left blank, we're looking for Okra's information. This is the state agency responsible for receiving that request and granting the release. So please ensure you list Indiana Okra and our address there. I provided it in the PowerPoint. And then another common mistake, very small, is on the second page under Statement 4. It asks whether or not it was necessary to prepare and disseminate an EIS. This is very important that you check the correct statement. Typically with these EAs, as far as I've been here, I have not come across a project requiring that. So please make sure you actually check the box for did not require the preparation and dissemination of an EIS. In the event that your project and your review does require an EIS, please contact Grant Services immediately so we can discuss the details of the project and how to move forward. Also, this is just a rehash on how the comment periods for environmental review work. We've already released some information about this, I believe, at the last update and during the GA training. And we do have a guide specifically about this available on the Okra website. I think it's on the forums page now, but it will be relocated to the resources page eventually. Just a reminder that the comment periods and submission comment periods, they're always 1 day after submission because HUD does not count submission date as day 1. And the same for counting the comment periods, whether that's local or state. We have to allow for a full 7 or 15 days, depending on the type of publication or type of form being submitted. So you'll allow a full 7 or 15 days to pass. And then the day after is when we can proceed. So for example, if you're submitting your ER Form 6, your RROFC to us on December 1st, we allow 15 full days to pass. And then the following day on the 16th, we can go ahead and issue release, assuming everything in your status report is good to go. And I believe that's all the updates I have for you folks. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Tim. So now, Catherine Johannes and John Hayden are going to give a tutorial on uploading files in GMS.
We can go on to the next slide. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Catherine Johannes, and I am the admin for Grant Services. Before we give you an example of the file upload, we wanted to go over some best practices. They're all laid out here, but we just wanted to remind you guys that, you know, most of the documents that are uploaded into GMS are scanned in, and it is so important that you have a good scanner. Most, if not all of these documents are scanned in, and they have to be correctly, you know, they have to be right side up. They cannot be damaged. We have to make sure that there are no paperclip staples, rips, tears, anything like that in them, because it really affects the way we can see them. Along with this, they need to be in PDF form. I know some files will come in Excel or Word. If you can, it is so important that they are uploaded in PDF form. And now we can move on and show you some examples.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is John Hayden from Grant Services. Myself and Michelle are going to be talking to you about the release of funds and the pre-release of funds and construction release process. We're going to go into a little bit of a tutorial when we get to the release of funds process, just so I can show you a little bit about what we're going over. Go ahead to the next slide, please. Again, over the next couple slides, we will be discussing the pre-release of funds, the release of funds, and the construction release process. A lot of the stuff for the first 2 points aren't going to be new information, but an overview of, since we're having this update, might as well go over some brief points that I take care of. Go ahead to the next part.
Got it. Trying to... I'm sorry.
Okay, so for the pre-release of funds, there's no major changes here. Again, I just wanted to give you an update on what type of things that I'm looking for. So if you have some time, you can go ahead and take down. These are the file uploads that I'm really looking for when I'm doing the pre-release of funds section. Or if you want to take a screenshot of these 4 points of, these are the major items that we're looking for when we're doing the pre-release of funds process. Additionally, for labor, there's some other points, but after we do the release of funds section, we'll talk more about that. I'll just give you a little bit of moment. Again, it is important that you are uploading these into the specific file section. I know that as Salesforce has become more of a new process, there's been lots of different ways that the grant administrators have gotten that to us. However, we are wanting as a preference moving forward that the files be uploaded directly into the system under the pre-release of funds section. If you are experiencing some technical issues, we ask that you do reach out to us. However, when the issue is resolved, that you go ahead and upload those files yourself. Okay, and then once the pre-release of section is complete, you will then need to move on to the release of funds. It is important that you do create this next process. So even if you've uploaded some documentation in the application section, you will need to still complete the release of funds as necessary for each project. One of the more important parts that I would like to bring up is the creation of contractor cards. These are necessary for all obligated contractors. When we're talking about the release of funds process, the word contractor is anyone or any organization that you have a major contract with. I know that typically when we say contractor, it refers to the back end. So when we're working on wastewater programs, it's the people doing the physical work. During the release of funds section, it's anyone that the community will have a contract with. So for this example, we have a grant administrator, a prime contractor, and engineer. Those are the three most common we'll get for contractor cards. What I'm asking is that as a grant administrator, that once you get the contract for the grant administrator and the engineer or the architect, that you go ahead and make contractor cards for those, and that you, once you're in those contractor cards, you actually upload those contracts into the file sections of those contractor cards. It's important that you make these contractor cards because on the back end, there is a checklist that I fill out and that I complete. And once all those contractor cards are completed and I check off on all of them, then I can actually start the process of releasing funds and getting that release of funds letter to you. Catherine, I believe we're actually going to do a quick demonstration on this process of the contractor cards and then opening those files. Yep.
All right, I can't unmute myself. So you'll start here. And once you have started your release of funds status report, you will click into it. I'm sorry about that. So once you are in your release of funds status report, you will not upload your files right here where it says files, although that seems where it would be. You will click into that contractor card, and here you can see this is the card right here. And this is where you will upload your files. All right, John?
Thank you for that, Catherine. And again, if any of you have any questions about this process, we can go ahead. We would be able to show you that at that time. Let me, one moment, and we'll pull up that slide again.
Give us just 1 second. Thank you.
Hi there. Thank you for that. Again, that was the process for creating those contractor cards. If you do have questions about having that process done, please feel free to email us and we can go over that again. We can go on to the next slide. So the other two big pieces of information that we will need is referring to the certificate of professional services and the local match documentation. So these two pieces of information won't go in the contractor cards themselves. These two pieces of information will go in the general file section for the release of funds. The certificate of professional services will act as a contract per se for your contractor or contractors. But again, you'll just need to have that uploaded in the general file section of the release of funds report. And then, of course, we'll need any local match documentation. For the budget summary that you'll see on that page, one thing to keep in consideration is that the total budget should always be greater than the contractor grant total. So if there's any updates that happen with your contractors where prices do increase with supplies and you'll need local match, please make sure to upload updated and revised local match documentation that reflects it so that the total budget will be greater than the contractor grant total. And that is what I have for my slide. If we do have any question, there's a good picture of what it should look like. If you do have any questions, I believe my email is located at the end of the slide. If you do need any more questions about the release of funds or pre-release of funds process. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, John. And then Michelle.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for your time this afternoon. So I'm going to talk about the release of funds for the labor section. It's just pretty much an overview. Nothing was really changing here. Adding on to the uploading into the file section for your release of funds for the labor. You're going to continue with your wage decision lock-in, filling out the information for the county, the bid opening date, the wage decision, and effect on the bid opening date. So nothing really is changing here. Your pre-bid conference guide acknowledgement. So all that stuff is the same. Nothing is really changing there. And we're going to go on to the prepare to submit for construction. Sorry, my mouse is really touchy. Construction release. These are the things that we're going to look for construction release. Some changes here. Want to make sure that your contractor or contract is signed and dated and added into the contractor card file. So the contractor card they were talking about for your release of funds that you had made previously, you're going to make one for your contractor, the one that's doing your work. So under the contractor card, you're going to upload their contract that's signed and dated. You're also going to add in there the notice of contract award, the eligibility, your SAM registration. Prime contractors are required to have your active registration status in SAM.gov and have no active exclusions. Also, the wage fringe, your labor form 9 and supporting documentation, and making sure that your wage fringe form 9 is correct and meets the wage decision. And then the contractor certification form 10. So all those things are going to be uploaded under the contractor card file. The SAM.gov is a little bit different. You actually have to have a login now, from what I understand. You have to register and sign in to be able to see all of this information. This is what I've seen in the past. If you have any questions about this, please let me know. I can walk you through it. I can give you instructions from our DOL person that she's given me a PowerPoint slide or instructions on how to actually get it to look like this. This is actually what I look for. And it's very tricky on how you enter in the entity registration, like how you, the spacing that you use, if you put a space in between initials to get them to populate correctly. So just be mindful of when you're actually typing in the name of the contractor. If you don't put it in the way they put it in, you may not find it. So be mindful of trying to to play with that a little bit when you're trying to populate those names. So this is what we're looking for in terms of the sam.gov for prime contractors. And then you can actually save this in PDF form as well, and that goes under the contractor card. For the HUD limited denial of participation, I am looking for this too. I will be able to get this information to you guys. I know it's a lot in this update, so feel free to contact me, but I just wanted to give you guys some information really quickly. Some more information. Just nothing's really changing here. Just update another same information, wage fringe, contractor certification, files for subs, wage fringe. We can run through this pretty quickly. Total package has to match base. Reviewing this, I can run through this. They're not working well. So you get your counties. Look at the groups, making sure, because I've noticed lately that some of these don't match all the time and my animations aren't working well. Fringe, and just want to give you some information on this. The wage fringe, I'm noticing they're not always filled out very well. So please make sure that these are filled out, because this is what we check when we're looking through your labor. So I'm checking the determination as well as your wage fringe certification. So please make sure that when you're looking at these example, that you're turning these in, that they're properly filled out, because this is what we're basing our monitoring on. Let me actually look at some of these questions here. If the prime contractors are not listed in sam.gov, they need to be registered. So all prime contractors have to be registered in sam.gov. If they're not, they have to be at least by the time they start work. So if you know who your primes are, please ask them to register, and then they can give us that paperwork. It takes about 2 months to register. So if they at least start that process, we'll take that paperwork, and then they can, by the time they hopefully start working, they can get that, they can be registered by the time they start working. And let me know ahead of time if that's the case. Normally they are registered, or we can actually find them some other way, but reach out to me ahead of time. If you think they're not, we can try to find a way to get them registered or start that process. So these are some examples of some Form 9s that we've gotten. Some people have asked me, can we write on these forms? You can. We have some of our GAs that actually break these fringe out. I know it's kind of difficult, but we've got some really good ones here. And you can write on it and just let me know that you're writing on these. And that's okay. So these classifications are very helpful because it helps me really hone in on the wage determination to figure out which ones you're using, because if you just write operator, I can't really figure it out until I have to look it up. So it makes it really easy to kind of, if you guys break it out. Just some more examples. This is extremely detailed. So, and then supporting documentation. A lot of times we do get insurance information. So if that's something that you guys can provide ahead of time, that helps on the back end for monitoring. It helps me figure out that they are meeting the wage determination. Teamsters, one more thing with this. This is a good thing to do here, is to tell me which class they're using. Sometimes they don't. I can't guess which level or which Teamster they're using. So please make sure that when you are turning in supporting documentation, you let me know which Teamster it is, which classification it is. If it's not filled out, I won't know. And then apprentice documentation, determining pay. If the base wage isn't matching, if the total due isn't matching, that needs to be checked prior to turning it in at monitoring. So just make sure that you have supporting documentation that will say it does match, or they are meeting the wage determination prior to monitoring, or finding out, meeting with that contractor saying, hey, this isn't matching, what's going on with it. And then staying organized. This is something that we received from a GA to kind of help you guys stay organized as we're coming out there. If you have more than one sub or something like that, then this kind of helps you figure out what you're doing. It helps you stay organized. And when we come out, this gives us something to do. But if you guys have suggestions for anybody else, we're happy to take that and pass it on. Another thing to add about subs have to be looked at have to be looked up in HUD. So subcontractors, make sure that you look up in HUD. They don't have to be on SAMs, but they definitely have to be on HUD. So make sure that you write that down as well. That's another update. And restitution payments, also, when you have payments for restitution, make sure that the payments that the employees are receiving for restitution, that they either sign it saying that they acknowledge that the payment they're receiving is for restitution, and that the check says in the memo section or on the paycheck stub that this payment is for restitution. Because when we submit a report to the Fed saying that these are all the restitution payments that were paid, they're going to want to see that this payment was for restitution. So make sure that that's also on there as well. And then I think this is for John, just to highlights about the ROF process.
Yep, thank you for that, Michelle. So we're just touching base quickly about the release of funds process. Just again, emphasizing the importance to create those contractor cards, especially for the engineers and GAs. We will still need that for the contractors, the ones who are actually doing the work on the project themselves, but specifically making sure that we get those signed contracts put into the contractor cards for those three contractor cards. The other two documentation that's important is making sure that there's a certification of professional services in reference to the prime contractor, making sure that we have local match documentation and making sure that's updated, and then any type of procurement review information that wasn't supplied during the pre-release of funds for whatever reason in the future. If a project we either skip or don't have a pre-release of funds process, then it would need to be included in the release of funds process, and making sure that all the appropriate documentation is uploaded into their corresponding file sections. And again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me as well.
I feel better today. It's okay. I had to say something.
And again, for construction release, just make sure that you're checking your wage fringe benefit certification prior to submitting for construction release. Make sure that your contracts are signed and dated. They're active. Your prime has active SAM registration. The HUD's up there. Your complete wage fringe benefit supporting documentation. And if it's available at time of construction release submission for your subs, that you checked your HUD limited denial participation for your subs, wage fringe support documentation, get that early. Upload it to your monitoring. If you don't have it, you don't have your subs at time of construction release, then get it anytime during your project. You can upload that for your subs, the wage fringe and your HUD, so we can check it before we either come out to see you. So that stuff can be done prior. And then best practice is group your subs and your information, like for your wage fringe, all together in one packet and upload that together. That way you're not piecemealing information. It's not one document at a time. It's all together in one packet. It makes it easier for us to scroll through it and kind of get all that documentation just together. So it's all nice and grouped. Thanks so much for your time, everybody.
Okay, and thanks, John and Michelle. Again, if you have any questions related to what they discussed throughout this GA update, there is their contact information. And also, we have the discussion chat open. So if you have a question right now, and please feel free to post that in the chat right now. So to wrap up, we've updated you on the following. Our reminder about the holidays coming up, the staff announcements, Cdbg updates, the income survey, GMS, timely expenditures, the claims process, ER process, uploading files, how to do that in GMS, the review of documentation and processes, overview and review of submission of construction release, the status of the COVID monitoring. So now we're going to open it up for questions. Please post your questions in the chat, and we'll answer them either in the chat or live. Thank you for sending these questions. We're publishing them as quickly as we can so that others can benefit from them. Okay, and it looks like most of the questions have been answered. Christmas, did you have anything else to add? Or actually, I'll let the whole team. Do any of you all have anything else to add?
Yeah, it looks like we've got a couple questions here about the 2022 calendar. I am being told that will be out soon. We submitted our proposed dates for the Cdbg programs, and that is currently being assembled and reviewed so that we can get final approval and get it out to all of you. I know that is essential so that you can kind of plan and organize your activities for the coming year. So as soon as we have final approval on the calendar dates that we have proposed, we will get that published for you and out and about.
Okay, and we're going to review some of these published questions just as a quick reminder. And a quick review. So one question was, will fire trucks be eligible in 2022? Christmas said Okra has not initiated the action plan process for 2022. A draft of the plan will be available on our website for review in the spring once it's completed. A public hearing will also be held to gather stakeholder input on the proposed method of distribution, eligible activities, etc. ahead of submission. In the meantime, reach out to your community liaison about alternative funding sources. So that was a question related to program eligibility. So if you have any questions related to specific items like fire trucks, anything like that, just reach out to community liaison and they're more than happy to help you. Another thing I would like to review is GA credit for the GA update. So if you need to get credit for this GA update and attending, I posted that link as an announcement. If you attended this GA update with a group, only one person needs to fill that form out. So hope this GA ticketing system will be a little bit easier for you all instead of trying to sign in the teams. Again, I want to remind you that the recording for the GA updates is typically posted within the next few days. As far as providing the slide deck, we are discussing that as a team, and we'll provide an update to you all in the next few business days on that as well. A few questions related to the income survey process. Now that we have the ability to link income surveys for an application, is it still required to upload the entire income survey in section 11 of the app? And no, that'll be uploaded within the income survey process in GMS. So assuming that you're not using an older approved income survey. We got lots of questions on labor. So if you have any questions related to SAMs, contractors, please reach out to Michelle Hansen. She's more than happy to help you out. Again, also John Hayden, he can answer questions on civil rights and a few others related to grant services. And then, do we have to do a pre-ROF report, or can we just do an ROF report that contains all information? And the pre-release of funds process is done all in the GMS. So those are the questions that I just wanted to highlight and touch on. Again, if you have any other questions, please reach out to us. We're more than happy to help. Thank you so much for attending the winter holiday update. I hope you all have a wonderful holiday. And yeah, have a great holiday. Thanks.